Now, today we have the ISIS thing, right? Okay, and everybody's trying to figure out, well, what about ISIS? What should we do? Should we drone them to death, or what should we do? And we have the kind of situation now where the intelligence community, the honest ones, are preparing papers that are being changed around. Maybe would you like to chat about that, Elizabeth, and talk about General, what's his name, Landry and all that kind of thing? Yeah, good. Elizabeth is, as you can see, much younger than I and much more recent on duty.
So one of actually the last position I had before I retired was as Deputy National Intelligence Officer for the Near East in the National Intelligence Council. And just a few months before I retired, I sat in on a meeting of the National Intelligence Officer for Military Affairs. And this was a meeting to discuss the situation in Iraq following the drawdown of US forces. This was in early 2010. And the National Intelligence Officer for Military Affairs was actually a general. And he was asking the analysts to report on the situation on the ground in Iraq. And all the analysts that were present at the meeting were reporting a great spike in violence around Iraq, that things were not calming down at all as had been anticipated after the drawdown of American forces. But in fact, fighting was multiplying, people were dying at an alarming rate. And when they were reporting about this, the response of the National Intelligence Officer was not to take notes and nod his head and say, okay, this is something I'm going to include in the National Intelligence estimate on this subject. Instead, he said, well, no, that's not what I've been hearing from my sources. I think you must have the wrong information. And as he went down the line, each analyst was reporting the same thing, giving very concrete evidence as to how violence in Iraq was increasing. And it was very clear to me, just as an observer at this meeting, that this National Intelligence Officer for Military Affairs had a preordained agenda, and that he was not going to take into account this information about the real unfortunate situation on the ground in Iraq. Now, what this means is that probably the president was going to get faulty information, maybe information that suited the military, that things were going according to plan in Iraq. And what does that mean in terms of the information that the Bayonday might get from the US? What is this? What are the implications about the information that our allied countries get? So that's something to think about. If intelligence is politicized in the United States, when that migrates abroad, how will your country's policy be then formulated? Are you really getting the information that you need?